Black Saturday Reflections by Tony London, read by Tony London. Before I was called out, we had been watching coverage of the fires for several days, ears glued to the news radio in the dark. Our fire was no Black Saturday which had engulfed the mountains of Victoria of my adolescent heartland. Ours was only 9,000 hectares of forest in local Redmond. Born Home Fast Attack 1 to Born Home Fast Attack 2, stick to the right down Hennings Road, too many widow makers falling out of that forest. Over. Fast Attack. Only 500 litres of water before we needed to refill. Water precious as. Different from the early days when we just turned up in our own utes. Old clothes, backpack squirters, wet bags and old shovel handles, talked about what we should do next. It was like an outdoor committee meeting. The tall Jarrah forest was roaring at itself as we hovered, patrolling in the thinly grassed paddock with a blanket of smoke as our backburn met the firehead and two towering walls of flame stood high and face to face, whilst red tongues of fire burst around us. Near a derelict house, a farmer stood on his round bales, bucket in hand, etched out against the evening sun now red above the horizon, whilst our pump motors on the trucks stood by, growling quietly in the wait. It was a fire we could eventually leave to the next shift, one that responded to the rules in the training manual. Back at home, the next morning, lungs still stiff with smoke, dirty uniform hanging on the back veranda airing, limp like a dead man. I looked at my library in the bush and the house fire breaks, all in need of a shave. Victorian survivors had spoken of the guilt of living. I felt the guilt of distance. Pioneer Oval at Marysville, where many had gathered for security and safety, was where I had kicked a goal against the stout mountain men in my youth, shared a beer after the game. How now the feeling of defeat. I kicked my tractor into life and set the slasher to work, giving whole paddocks a crew cut, trying to keep busy to flatten the roaring images that crashed into my mind with the cutting blades and the seeming anger of the motor. Heard the voices of the Marysville folk. It sounded like 10 jumbo jets taking off through the forest above us. The searing heat and smoke that killed simply by stealing the light, burning up the air they needed. This here is where the windscreen melted. It was like they'd been cremated in embrace. From my tractor, I could usually see the ocean, but this time my mind was crowded with my own memory, attending a call-out to a burning truck, a flatbed with a trailer carrying gas bottles for delivery, all upturned in the highway. The driver upside down, still in his seat, burning alive, just doing his job. Men hosing down gas bottles with foam. One senior officer mentioned counselling in passing. The blokes just looked the other way.